Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're jumping into one of the most fundamental, most powerful, and just plain useful tools in all of Python, the list. Seriously, if you want to organize your data, this is where the magic starts. I mean, think about it for a sec. A single variable, that's great for holding, your name or maybe one number. But what happens when you've got a whole bunch of stuff to deal with? Like a list of students in a class, a series of temperature readings, or all the ingredients for a recipe. That's the exact problem we're going to solve right now. So to make this super clear, let's use a little analogy. I want you to think of a Python list as a magic bookshelf. Yep, it's this special container that you can create to hold all your different bits of data, all lined up and ready to go whenever you need them. Okay, so what is a list officially? Well, there are two key words in that definition: ordered and changeable. Ordered just means every single item has its own specific spot on the shelf, and it stays there. And changeable, oh, that is a genuine superpower, and we're going to see why in just a little bit. And this is where that magic part of the bookshelf really comes into play. See, some containers in programming, they can only hold one type of thing, not lists. Your magic bookshelf is super flexible. You can stick a word right next to a whole number, right next to a decimal, all in the same list. It's this mix and match ability that makes them so incredibly useful. All right, so we've put our stuff on the shelf. Awesome. But now what? How do we actually, use it? How do we find things or count them or maybe even shuffle them around? Let's get this shelf organized. First things first, how much stuff do we even have? To figure that out, Python gives us this super simple function called len, which is just short for length. Think of it like a quick glance at your shelf to do a head count. You just give it the name of your list, and bam, just like that, you get your answer, 3. Simple, right? The len function is going to be your best friend. It's like your go-to inventory check you'll use all the time. Okay, now what if we want to grab one specific item? Well, since lists are ordered, every item has a position number. In programming, we call this its index. Now, here is the most important part, the one thing you have to remember. Python starts counting from 0. So the very first item on the shelf isn't at position 1, it's at index 0. So when we ask for the item at index 0, we get exactly what we'd hoped for: apple. This super simple square bracket way of doing things is the absolute key to grabbing any single piece of data you need from your list. But what if you want to work with the whole shelf, or maybe even 2 shelves? Well, Python gives us some neat shortcuts. The plus sign lets you just smash 2 lists together to make one big one, and the multiplication sign, it lets you repeat the items in a list over and over again. This is actually super handy when you need to create some starting data. And hey, if you've worked with strings, this will look familiar. You can slice a list to just grab a little piece of it. You just tell it where to start and where to end, and Python gives you a brand new, smaller list with just those items. Just remember, it grabs the item at the start index, but it stops before it gets to the end index. So 0, 2 gives us items 0 and 1. Okay, deep breath. We've now arrived at maybe the single most important idea that makes lists different from things like strings. Lists are mutable. And mutable is just a fancy way of saying they are changeable. You can alter them directly. Here it is, side by side. Both lists and strings, they have a set order, right? But, and this is a big but, only lists are changeable. With a list, you can go in and swap out one item for another without having to create a whole new list. This power to change things in place is what makes them so dynamic and so efficient. All right, you're going to want to pay close attention here because this is a classic Python gotcha that trips up a lot of people. So we make a list, we'll call it A. Then we say B is equal to A. And then we change the very first item in list B to 99. Seems straightforward enough, right? So the big question is, after we changed list B, what do you think happened to our original list A? Is it still 10, 20, 30, or did it change too? Take a guess. And surprise, the original list, A, was changed. They're both 99, 20, 30. Now, if you thought A and B were 2 totally separate copies, don't worry. You've just stumbled upon one of the most important things to understand about how Python really works. So here's what's really going on. When you type B equals A, you don't actually create a new bookshelf. You just create a second little label, or a sticky note, called B, and you stick it onto the exact same bookshelf that the label A is already on. There's only one list object in the computer's memory. So if you use the B label to go and change something on the shelf, anyone who looks at that shelf using the A label is going to see that change too. They're both pointing to the same thing. Okay, after that little brain bender, let's look at something that's just incredibly practical: the amazing partnership between lists and their close cousins, strings. The source material we're looking at calls this a match made in heaven, and honestly, that's the perfect way to describe it. They work together so perfectly because so much of programming involves taking a big chunk of text and breaking it down into smaller pieces to work with. And here's the most common way you'll see them team up. You can take literally any string, and you can use the dot split method on it. By default, it just breaks up the string everywhere it sees a space, and it hands you back a beautiful, perfect list of all the individual words. This one technique is an absolute cornerstone of processing text in Python. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. We've figured out what lists are, how to get stuff out of them, how to change them, and even how they work with strings. So, what does this all mean for you? It means you've just unlocked a brand new programming superpower. And believe me, we've really just scratched the surface. Python gives you all these powerful built-in tools called methods to manage your lists. For instance, you can easily add a new item to the end of the shelf with .append. You can pluck the last item off with .pop. You can even instantly reorder the entire shelf, say alphabetically or numerically with .sort. These are your shortcuts to becoming a data organizing pro. So why does any of this matter? Because with just this one tool, the Python list, you can now start to solve real complex programming challenges. The source material actually points out that dozens of problems on coding competition sites like Kattis, everything from analyzing game scores to sorting huge amounts of data, are now totally within your reach. You now have the fundamental tool to collect, to organize, and to change data using Python. That magic bookshelf is yours to command. So I guess the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it? Thanks for tuning into this explainer.